Very good evening, everyone at Tushita and online. And thank you for joining us this evening. So I see new faces, so maybe I will explain a little bit what we are doing. This is a series of 16 guided meditations on inner values that we can develop. They are inspired by a text that was composed by the king of Tibet in the 7th century, King Songtsen Gompo. But the text that he composed has been actually only the essence, the core values have been taken out, extracted in a non-religious way, totally secular way, just so that we can contemplate these inner values and try to, increase them within us. So the format of these sessions is that we first start with settling meditation, basically, to arrive here on the cushion and to arrive in front of our device, those who are joining online. So we do that for about maybe 7-8 minutes. And then I will introduce that we are exploring today, which is generosity. And after that, we have some time to exchange among ourselves. What is our own experience with generosity, with generous people or people who are not generous, and how easy it is for us or difficult for us to be generous and so forth. Then after that will come the actual guided analytical meditation on generosity, which will be about 15-20 minutes perhaps. And then again, we have some time to discuss among ourselves whatever the impact of the meditation had on us, or any feedback you would like to share on the meditation and so forth. This is actually a pilot series of meditations that was created by the Foundation for the Development of Compassion and Wisdom. Tushita is actually part of a network of 130 services and projects around the world called the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. And the Foundation for the Development of Compassion and Wisdom is one of those 130 other centers, projects, and services. It is the secular branch of the organization, the totally non-religious branch of the organization. So we can start with the settling meditation. Usually with these meditations, we start with a body scan, but I have noticed that because the body scan is from the top of the head to the bottom, it tends to put us a bit to sleep, So maybe today we'll try something different. I was thinking we could just do calm abiding meditation, a single-pointed meditation. So find a comfortable posture. The best is to sit on the floor. But if you're sitting on the chair, it's totally fine. Just make sure you're not leaning against the support of the chair and not leaning too much forward either. Try to be naturally upright. If you're sitting on the floor, you can simply have your legs crossed. If you can sit in the full lotus posture, that is of course the best, but it might be a little bit challenging physically, so make sure you're not pushing your body. Make sure you are sitting comfortably. The hands, you can choose whether you want to put them in the traditional concentration mudra with your right hand on top of the left, the two thumbs slightly touching, and this mudra rests on your lap. Or if it's more comfortable, you can place on your knees or whatever feels natural. Try to allow some space between your arms and your body for the air to flow. So the back is naturally upright. You can imagine there is a string pulling from the crown of your head, keeping your body upright. The neck is aligned in a continuation of the spine. You can very slightly tilt the head forward, but not much. The shoulders, arms are relaxed. You can place your tongue just behind your upper teeth, towards your upper palate. This helps to reduce the production of saliva while you meditate. And finally, you can decide for yourself if you want to slightly close your eyes or leave them slightly open, but avoiding visual distractions, trying to focus on your mind. Next, what we will do is we will try to place all our attention on the breathing sensation at the entrance of the nostrils. This small area at the entrance of the nostrils, you can perhaps feel that there is a kind of a cool sensation as you breathe in and a warm sensation as you breathe out. Don't try to control your breath, just breathe naturally and just observe. Now, when we meditate, we tend to get distracted. And there are two main ways we get distracted. The first one is called mental excitement. Basically, we are distracted with thoughts, mostly thinking about the future, for example, what we will have for dinner after this session, or thinking about the past, some meeting you had this afternoon or something like that. And therefore we lose our object of meditation. The second way we tend to get distracted is with mental dullness or laxity or lethargy. Basically, we don't put enough application in our meditation and the mind starts to sink. We have this tendency to fall asleep, and therefore we also lose our object of meditation. So finally, for single-pointed meditation, there are two antidotes that we need to use to counteract these distractions. The first antidote is called introspection. You can imagine it is like a small part of your mind in the background that is checking, like a supervisor or a police officer or a guard, looking, what is my mind doing? Is it focused on the object of meditation? Or is it distracted with thoughts or with dullness? And the moment you notice that you are not focused on your object of meditation anymore, you make use of the second antidote, which is called mindfulness. And the role of mindfulness is to bring the mind back onto the object of meditation and making sure it remains on the meditation object. It is a little bit as if you have a pet dog at home and the dog runs away. Introspection notices that the dog is gone, and mindfulness brings the dog back home, and you can also imagine tying him against a pillar so that it remains at home. It's a little bit similar to what we are trying to do with our mind. So we can try as much as we can to remain focused on the breathing sensation at the entrance of the nostrils for about 7 minutes, and making sure to use introspection and mindfulness to help us. gently come out of the meditation. Were you able to meditate, or so many thoughts coming? So I will briefly introduce the topic of generosity, and then we can discuss for a few minutes among us what is our experience with generosity, if it's easy for us to be generous or not, what we think about generosity in general, and so forth. So the way the 16 guidelines for a happy life describe generosity, they say in some way generosity seems crazy, it's like a counter-cultural way to behave. Instead of keeping our time, our energy, our possessions for ourselves, we give them away. There is something very powerful about choosing to do this. It is a fundamental shift away from the limited world of me, mind, me and mine. Generosity is defined by the wish to benefit someone else. It is rarely the size of the gift or the gesture that matters the most, but the message that comes with it. The heart knows this immediately and unmistakably. We taste the uneasiness when a gift has an ulterior motive, and save our real admiration for the person who can give without seeking anything in return. To some degree, everyone is likely to demonstrate generosity in some way, whether to a member of their family, a friend, or a beloved animal. The question is whether we choose to go further than that, whether we want to learn how to open our hearts and hands more widely, and to share more generously whatever time, energy, talents, and possessions that we have. It is a critical decision about the direction that we want our lives to take. You probably heard it said that it is better to give than to receive. But have you ever stopped to really ponder what that means and how the act of generosity can transform not only the recipient's life, but yours as well? True generosity, at its core, is a pro-social behavior deeply rooted in altruistic actions. It is a virtue that goes beyond mere material gifts. It involves giving your time, energy, and talents selflessly for the benefit of others. Generosity is not conditional on receiving thanks, praise, or enhancing reputation. True acts of generosity will resonate deeper when they come from a place untouched by self-interest. Generosity doesn't depend on intelligence or the amount of wealth someone has. Research shows that the less people have, the more they have a tendency to be generous. Giving away something we enjoy and use, or have a future use for, helps us to have a meaningful relationship with our possessions. The happiest people are not those getting more, but those giving more. When did you last experience a moment of pure generosity? Whether you are on the receiving side or the giving side. So you can take a few moments, to exchange your thoughts about generosity and your personal experience with generosity, giving, receiving, general thoughts about generosity. So as usual on Zoom, just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. And here, of course, at Tushita, just go ahead and speak. No thoughts on generosity? Yes, please.
So again, I might not be following the definition exactly, but I've been noticing that I've just done that 10-day meditation trip in Dharamshala, and since then I've been noticing that a lot more people are kinder to me, like they are being nicer to me for some reason, and I really reflected on that and felt that uh, that it's such a good cycle, right? The 7-point cycle of the path where you ruminate on the generosity of your parents and their friends and then strangers, and that makes you more generous. I think it's because of that cycle that you just attract more generosity. So I think it's such a great mental shift because the moment you are nicer, people are nicer, and then you want to be nicer. Like it's just a cycle which I noticed. So I don't know. Yeah.
What is your name?
Shanti.
Venerable Droka. Oh. You just did a course with Venerable Droka?
Yes.
Oh, acha. Anybody else would like to share anything about generosity?
Not like a recent experience, but I think I've seen my father as being one of the most generous persons. So I have learned a lot of things from him. So like he's a doctor, but I have seen like him treating so many poor people for free. Even today, like random jobless people would come to him and he would help. Like even if it's less amount, he would always give that money. And even like he teaches me that whatever you have, it doesn't matter, but always try to help the poor and the less fortunate. So I think a lot of generosity you learn also by seeing others. When you are surrounded by generous people, you feel like being that I should be more like them.
Do you all have examples of people who are very generous around you with their time or giving to the poor or helping others?
I think being generous, one shouldn't realize that they are being generous. It's a basic human character or humane. The moment you realize you are being generous, then from that moment you are not being generous. I think it should be, it's an innate thing that you shouldn't feel that you are being generous. It's a basic human character or an innate nature that should come from yourself, and it should be present among all us. That's how the world should be. I mean, it may be wrong, but this is what I put being generous.
So for generosity to be genuine, we should not feel that we are being generous, we should just do it.
Yes.
And there was someone on the chat saying something. Sucheta is saying, I think being generous to people who you don't really like is very healing and even reduces the dislike.
Yeah,
Neil,
I'd
please.
like to. Yeah, it was like that for me as well when I was able to give to a sort of thing with another organization, and then I was thinking that it would benefit me back. So I mean, it was like a almost having a maybe a little expectation that later on my family would be helped or me would be in a better position. So maybe that's like a conflicting emotion almost, or something like that.
Could you hear?
Yes.
At the back, could you hear? I was talking about having expectations, when you give, expecting something in return. Sorry, usually I put the speaker, but I got a little bit late with the traffic, so didn't have time to put it today. Anybody else would like to share something?
Another thing I would add, right? Like sometimes you see generosity from people who you don't expect generosity from. Like people might be unkind otherwise, and I think that is very interesting. I think it's very similar to the idea that your mind is pure. So that reflection you can see sometimes, even with people who are fully engulfed by samsara, but they still have those elements, and I think that is beautiful.
Does it feel difficult to be generous? Does it feel difficult to give? Or is it natural? Should be natural.
I think when I'm stressed, when I'm stressed or like, that time I might not be generous. I know that, like, yeah. And I think generosity is also not only with money, right? It's appreciation, love, kindness. Yeah. I think when I'm stressed, I'm not very generous.
Yeah, when we are stressed, we are more concerned about our own than others, right? So it's more difficult to be generous. And someone is chatting, Apollina. Please feel free to unmute yourselves now on Zoom. Otherwise, I have to read your chats. Generosity has a downside, Apollina is saying. When you are unconditionally generous to others, especially when you do not know they lied about their circumstances, can be detrimental. They snatch away everything from you in return, including your property, your country. I remember once I was giving for a puja, like you need to collect some amount to gather all the offerings and so forth. And so I went to give. I don't remember how much I wanted to give, and I paid with a credit card. So you put the amount on the machine, and I said I want to give that much, and actually they put 1 0 too much. But we both saw it, and I said, yeah, it's fine, chalo, let's do it like that. But then he said, no, you have to be comfortable. Otherwise, it's not the true generosity, right? If you feel you're losing one part of yourself. Okay, maybe we can do the actual meditation, where also we'll define a little bit more generosity, and then we can take more time to discuss. So again, find a comfortable posture. You can rest your hands on your knees or on your lap, palms up or down, whichever is more comfortable. The back naturally upright but not stiff. The arms and shoulders should be relaxed. Your neck aligned in the continuation of the spine, slightly tilted forward. And gaze gently downwards in a way that avoids visual distractions. Or if you prefer, you can lightly close your eyes. Now that you are comfortably seated, turn your attention to the breath as it enters and leaves the body. Let us start by taking 3 long, slow breaths, allowing the air to enter deeply so that the stomach rises and falls with each breath. Now let us analyze. When we describe a person or an action as being generous, what do we mean by that? Is generosity simply about giving away something that we do not need? Or does being truly generous involve something more than that? Are there different ways in which we can be generous? Are there different degrees of generosity? Some people seem to be more generous than others. Is there anything we can do to close the gap? What is the relationship between generosity and happiness? The 16 guidelines for a happy life define generosity as the ability to give without seeking anything in return. To give, whether it is our possessions, our skills, our time, in practice, this means that when we give, we should aim to abandon any thought of personal gain, such as receiving an equally nice gift back on our own birthday or being admired in any way. Instead, this kind of radical generosity demands that we focus all our energy on fulfilling someone else's needs, no matter the cost or inconvenience to ourselves. For most of us, this is definitely a stretch beyond our normal comfort zone. Yet giving without seeking anything in return is not only a positive experience for the recipient, but also can open the heart of the giver and bring a special sense of joy, happiness, and satisfaction. What does generosity mean to you? Around you, is there a friend, a family member, a public figure, or an organization that you admire for being generous? Try to bring to mind someone you admire for their generosity. In what ways are they generous with their money and material possessions? In what ways are they generous with their skills? In what ways are they generous with their time? Or are they generous in all these different ways? Bring this friend, family member, public figure, or organization to mind. Is there one thing that they have done to help someone else that has particularly impressed you? What makes this stand out in your mind? Would you like to cultivate a similar ability to be generous yourself? It is great to be inspired by the generosity of others, providing this doesn't take away our own confidence to give. Sometimes we may find ourselves holding back from giving because we feel too small, too poor, or too incapable. We forget that being generous doesn't depend on wealth, education, or intelligence. A small act of generosity made with an open heart is often the most touching and effective for the person who receives it. Let us do a short exercise. It is an invitation to strengthen our confidence and capacity to give so that when the opportunity presents, then we are ready. It also encourages us to widen our sphere of generosity. it's often easier to be generous to the people we feel close to. So it is interesting to see what happens when we try to be generous on a bigger scale. Start by imagining yourself surrounded by all the people in the universe, of all the different races, cultures, and traditions. Visualize your friends and the people that you feel close to, alongside and behind you. The people that you find challenging, visualize them standing directly in front of you. And beyond all these people is a vast and colorful crowd of people of all ages, stretching out in every direction, all the way to the far horizon. Try to visualize numberless people surrounding you. And now to start the exercise, first bring to mind something that would be relatively easy for you to let go of. Perhaps it's a small change, 5 or 10 rupees, or a cup of tea, or something to eat. Or do you have clothes hanging in the back of a cupboard that you no longer wear? Or books that you have read and which are now sitting on the shelf? Visualize offering these small gifts to the vast crowd of people that stretches out all around you. Multiply the number of these gifts until the air is full of them, hundreds and thousands of them, as far as the eye can see. You mentally imagine that this 5 rupee coin that you have at home, or 10 rupee note, cup of chai, books that you no longer use, or clothes that you no longer wear. Visualize that you multiply them infinitely and offer to the countless people that you're visualizing in all directions. And imagine that the vast crowd is very happy to receive your gifts. Enjoy the warm taste of happiness from all these people who are receiving them. Imagine their pleasure at receiving them as powerfully as you can. Now let us try with possessions that are a bit more precious and valuable to you. Do you own some jewelry that you don't often wear? Or a spare phone that you changed a few years back and you're still saving the old one in a drawer? Or an old computer? Or is there an empty room in your home? Or savings that you don't have an immediate use for? Whether you actually possess these things or not, imagine offering these more substantial gifts to the vast crowd of people that stretch all around you. Multiply the number of these gifts until the air is full of them. Mentally transform them into hundreds and thousands of them as far as the eye can see. And imagine that the vast crowd is very happy to receive your gifts. Enjoy the warm taste of happiness from all the people who are receiving your gifts. Imagine their pleasure at receiving them as powerfully as you can. Offering material objects to others is only one form of generosity. If you are fit and healthy, could you offer to do someone's shopping or give them a hand in the house or in the garden? Could you offer support or cook a meal or babysit for an evening for someone that needs it? Could you make time for a conversation with someone who's lonely and depressed? What else could you offer? Visualize giving these gifts of service to the vast crowd of people that stretches out all around you. Imagine your own body multiplying hundreds and thousands of times until you are offering service in every direction as far as the eye can see. Visualize that the vast crowd is very happy to receive your gifts of service. Enjoy the warm taste of happiness from all the people who are receiving them. Imagine their pleasure at receiving your gifts of service as powerfully as you can. Now finally, imagine that you are a superhero with magical powers to solve any problem in the world. Is there one thing that you would really like to fix? Would you like to solve drought and water shortages? Would you like to pacify earthquakes, storms, or would you like to eliminate global warming? Would you like the capacity to calm anger and hatred and to end all war and bloodshed? Supposing the touch of your hands could cure pain and heartache. Visualize yourself as a superhero with one power. You are allowed to choose one problem that you will eliminate from the world today. What will it be? What problem will you solve? Visualize offering your services to the vast crowd of people that stretches out around you. Imagine your superhero body multiplying hundreds and thousands of times so that you can fly in every direction as far as the eye can see. And enjoy the warm taste of happiness from all the people who are benefiting from this problem being solved. Imagine that pleasure as powerfully as you can as you dedicate yourself to addressing the needs of people. So, of course, getting back in touch with reality, we might not be superheroes, but everyone has the power to give and share in smaller ways. Repeating this exercise, or whichever part of it would be most helpful, will help us strengthen our determination and ability to be generous without seeking anything in return. In training our mind, we can gradually reach the point where we give away our possessions, skills, and time with increasing joy, happiness, and satisfaction. May the practice of generosity enrich our lives and the lives of all the beings around us. So now we can again take a few minutes to exchange among ourselves and particularly share feedback, what arose from this meditation. Maybe if you would like to share, what you imagined offering and what kind of superhero you visualize yourself as. And I'm also looking for feedback on the format of these meditations, as this is a pilot series of meditation. Actually, at the moment, just a few centers are testing them around the world, and next year, depending on the feedback that we give, these meditations will be a little bit tweaked, before they are launched officially in 2025 for all the centers to use. So anybody, any feedback about the meditation? On Zoom, you can simply unmute, and here, feel free to share. Yes.
The visualizing part was very, very nice. And obviously, in world, whatever we are doing, right? I'm trying to help someone, but that is very, very like physically or financially or time frame. You have very limited things. And when you visualize, right, you can obviously solve a lot of big problems, or you can help at least your heart open for the things, right? That you can now you can open to other world, right? It is not where you can reach only or where you can do that. It's always there are bigger things you can plan. Visualizing it was really helping, and as far as generosity is concerned, I think it gives more satisfaction to the giver, right? As compared to obviously the person who receives, he also gets satisfaction, right? But the person who gives, he feel very happy, and happiness is the ultimate. And when we were visualizing that thing, everyone has the old phone or clothes, right? That I was thinking what kind of things we can get, right? So everyone has that. So visualizing was really, really nice. About this meditation.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I'm quite amazed when you start to think a little bit about the generosity, how much it goes in the way of selflessness. So really in the meditation, you bring the elements to let go what you don't need, but it's also help you to realize that there's so many things we don't really need, but it also brings you to the point that be generous with yourself or be generous with other people is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. And you have to forget a little bit yourself, but not completely. You should not put more importance in be generous with yourself for the other one. You should just be generous in the same way with everything. And this is going to bring you quite a lot of satisfaction, quite a lot of peace of mind. Anyway, so it's really interesting. Generosity, the link between generosity and selflessness is quite amazing in that aspect. I hope people will understand what I try to mention.
And Pierre, what superhero did you visualize yourself as? What world problem did you solve? I'm curious.
For me, it was the capacity to get rid of hatred and what was called anger and hatred. I believe that they are almost always, if not always, bad advisor for what we do. And it's again, they are dividing, they are pushing us in our shell. They are building on the fact that we believe we are different we are different. We have the right to have. We have the right to pretend. When if you just let go of it, it's just I know, hatred. I mean, if you can get rid of that, there's some other problem in the world, but it would be so much easier to address that.
Without anger in the world, much less problems. Ajay, would you like to say something? I saw that you raised your hand.
Yeah, do you hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm not sure at the back they hear you. They say yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is really for the format. Uh, the king is very familiar with Buddhism. He knew the Buddhism which came from India, from Nepal, because two of his queens were from these countries. Having known what is Buddhism, he decided to compose the 16 qualities for the happiness. What was the background? Why did he really decide to me, it really appears that he wanted to avoid something, but at the same time wanted to bring the Buddhist understanding in the life. So, is there any background? If that background is here, probably I think the appreciation of this 16 qualities will become much better. I think this is what I want to really suggest. Because every teachings of Buddha or every commentary is given by the teacher, there's a kind of the background. So to me, it really appears he distilled all the secular qualities and he wanted to bring it in the society, which I think is implicitly he wanted to avoid something. I don't know whether I made it clear, Nico.
Yes, I mean I think your internet connection is not. It's jumping a little bit, but I think I understood. And actually, yeah, in the 7th century, the people in Tibet were a bit violent. It was like a warlike nation, and this text from King Songtsen Gampo really helped. It was really based on the Buddha's teachings. So the 16 qualities were not presented like here in a very secular, non-religious way. It was really based on the Buddha's teachings. But they really helped, to transform the mind of people to become peaceful. And you probably have Tibetan friends, or you have seen Tibetan, how kind and how humble and, how harmonious they are. So this text really helped.
Yeah, so I think, this is really for the mind training.
JJ, your sound is breaking. I did not hear what you said.
You hear me now?
No. I think some internet.
No, it's okay. I think, yeah. It's okay. Please carry on.
Sorry, I cannot hear. Anybody else would like to say something? I think I saw
Okay.
Mukul. Mukul, you unmuted yourself. I don't know if you want to share something.
Yeah, I'm not technologically very sound. But can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Ah, wonderful that I am. No, this is the first time I've come for this meditation, though I have been doing Buddhist meditation for quite some time. To me, coming back to your moot question, to me, generosity is very empowering. And I'm a little skeptical about those people who say, okay, we are doing it with ulterior motives. See, that bit just has to be removed. We are not thinking of ulterior motives. It is something that you just do sometimes on the spur of the moment, not thinking of the consequences, a good deed, and it may result in something, it may not. I had a small experience of helping a blind man cross a road, and he needed to go somewhere, and a rickshawala stopped and immediately took him. So I had to go to the post office, and I know how long a line there is at the post office. So I said, oh my God, now I have to wait. And I went there, and there were a couple of people in the queue ahead of me, and they said, ma'am, we saw what happened, and could you go first? So it's just something that happened as a result, probably, of, they're watching the fact that I helped this blind man cross the road. What I'm simply trying to say is that is not at all something that I expected to happen, but it just kind of happened. But on the other side, I'd like to say that I don't like to talk about anything that I've done or I've given. It makes me feel very small. I somehow, uh, you know, don't like to speak about it. It should be very quiet, as far as I'm concerned, the deed between you and whoever you want to benefit. And then it should just disappear. There should be no talk about it. This is how I look at it. but I do feel it's very empowering. And the more often you do it, I think you become a stronger person.
Very empowering. Yeah, makes us feel stronger and better persons. No, when we practice generosity, you wanted to share something as well.
Yeah, I actually had a question, and just maybe as a feedback, but also as just intellectual questions. Uh, like him, I also, when I thought about generosity, I connected a lot with selflessness. But then in the exercise, at the end, uh, it seemed that a lot of motivation was to get other people's happiness and to feel it myself, which intellectually didn't really align. Like for some reason, it felt that that wasn't why I was generous. So I don't know why that is, but I was a bit conflicted there. Um, and I know Buddhism generally talks more about suffering, alleviating that, rather than, I mean, it does talk about happiness also, but it just felt that that didn't feel generous as much. Um, because have always thought of generosity as something you do because it's also the right thing. So I don't know what you guys think, but just as a feedback, there's something intellectually that didn't strike.
Yeah, I feel when you help someone, when you give something to someone, it's a byproduct. Not that it also makes you feel happy, but yeah, the motivation is to benefit other person, right? But for some people, actually, seeing the benefit of helping others or practicing generosity, or seeing the benefit for oneself is helps for some people. Like, let's say someone is really selfish and wants to be happy. It sounds difficult. No, when we are selfish, our mind is so narrow and the heart is not open, our mind is not vast. But for such a person, it might really help to contemplate that if one opens up the heart and helps others, practice generosity and so forth, then one will become much more happy. This is a little bit out of the non-religious, non-secular, but the Kadampa masters, they used to say, use the spear of ego to destroy the ego. Like, you want to be happy? Make others happy. This will make you happy also.
Just want to say, it's something that is quite funny because in fact you realize that you are really generous today. You offer something to someone, this person will throw it away, and you're not upset. Today you offer something to someone that don't welcome it or don't want it, and you accept the choice of this person not to take the gift, not to want it. And you don't go in the way that you will shut down yourself and you will not do it again because you've been hurting your ego. But this takes a bit of knowledge. So I totally agree with the fact that using our ego to make our ego happy, to increase our generosity, sometimes can be a good strategy.
I missed the last part of the meditation. What was you not agreeing with?
So I was just intellectually unsure about taking everyone else's happiness and like feeling really good about that. Somewhere that felt as enlarging myself, which I thought in Buddhism was the idea of shunyata, right? You want to not have this. That's where I was intellectually unsure, because generosity to me implied that we do it without that consequence.
Consequence, like they are happy or you will be happy for them.
The fact they're happy is fine, but then we were taking their happiness, right? Like that part.
It's transactional.
It's transaction. Yeah, so that part was where I was like.
But I think I had used that sometimes if while wanting to give, I didn't want to give, then I told myself that I've heard from somewhere, when you give, you get double in return. I have used that in those cases where I didn't want to give, but I know that there is a good karma associated with it. Maybe it's not the right thing to do, but I have done that.
No, I see the practicality. Practically, this makes more sense. Definitely.
Yeah, actually, we did a meditation. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before on rejoicing, feeling happy about the happiness of others as well, which is also a good quality to develop. You can watch the recording. It's on our YouTube channel if you want to do that meditation as well. So let us conclude this session. We're already over time a bit. So try to think of ways that you can bring generosity into your daily life throughout the coming week, and next week we'll explore the next of the 16 qualities, which is the right speech. So we'll talk about that. I think it's also next Monday. Yeah, next Monday, 6:30. So now we can dedicate the positive energy and increase understanding that we might have generated in this session. And we can dedicate this positive energy and understanding to all those who are ill, mentally or physically, for them to have a good health. We can also dedicate for all those who are hungry or thirsty to have food and drink. To all those who are being harmed by violence, war, conflict, for all of them to be at peace. For all those who don't have a home, to be safe and to find respite from the heat if they're living in a warm place, or from the cold if they are living in a cold place. For all those who are challenged with loneliness, disharmony or financial pressures, to end their worries and increase their happiness. How wonderful it would be if everyone in this room, everyone on Zoom, everyone in the country and everyone in the world were to reach their potential. Thank you very much for joining this session, and have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow. We have a teaching here at Tushita from Kabir Saxena, who actually used to live in Delhi for so many years, but now is again in Bodh Gaya, helping with the projects of the FPMT there. And he's coming tomorrow just for 2 days, so every time he comes, we try to grab and ask him to teach here at the center. So he's teaching tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. also here and online, same place, same Zoom link. And he will share some of his favorites stanzas, from different texts, from the different Buddhist traditions, and explain a little bit about them. So very welcome to join us tomorrow. And as usual, we have the morning meditations from 9 to 9:30 a.m. This is happening online on Zoom only. Thank you very much. Have a good night.